Hey legends, just want to jump in and do a little review. We'll preview also the second week of the finals as well in a very short video as well. So just two short and sharp ones to get my perspective for those that enjoy it, and obviously a little bit around a fantasy perspective going into next year, because a lot of guys here that are making a bit of a splash, making some waves in the finals, that really goes a long way for teams being able to think about using them in bigger roles, especially if it's forwards or some of these outside backs. They are really fighting for a spot in a starting team next year, and a massive game this was for the Broncos. The Storm were very, very poor, unfortunately. You have to really credit the Broncos for their efforts, especially from that second half, to really go on and go along with this win. Obviously being 8-0 at halftime, off to a 26-0 finish in this one. And look at guys like Reece Walsh, and he's going to be an interesting one to look at for next year. And we still look at the stats there for each of these guys. And from a fantasy perspective there, you see Walsh is absolutely dominate, but still 50 points in this one. And it's just clearly he's not one of those guys that gets the massive run meters. And that's kind of something to still note coming into next year for someone like him. You look at their outside backs, and is Farnworth going to be? How's he going to go over in the Dolphins as well? He's very, very expensive, and he absolutely dominated this one as well for another 50 points. But very much he's at that price already. A few guys in their forwards are going to be interesting to look at is Palacia. He did have 29 in this one. It just shows that the run meters were so big for the Broncos, and they really dominated from that front. But he's definitely someone to look heading into next year as well. And then Kobe Hetherington seems to be playing much better now than he was last year when I was looking to pick him up in our side. So it just makes you look at here, Payne Haas and Carrigan, just two guys that you really want in your side from round one. And we know that Reynolds, a lot of people really just unfortunately picked him at the wrong time there, and there really wasn't much to write home about for the Storm. And you can see that there with their completion rate of 67. And Broncos looking forward, obviously get the week off, but something they need to look at is increasing that, especially getting into the prelim and the final, is getting that right, because getting close to the 80% there is going to be the big ticket for them to help them beat the Panthers. That's for sure. You saw there, obviously they had a little bit more time in possession and really ran the footy well. All run meters they got past the Storm by about 300 there, and post-contact meters were big as well. So on the offensive side, they're really, really dominant. The Storm had a much better average play the ball speed, and it showed just in this case it didn't really matter because they weren't able to penetrate the Broncos' really, really solid defense. And I think it just gives them even more love for this 26-0 outing and this victory there, is because of that 3.39 Storm play the ball speed. That's really elite, and they still weren't able to score off that, and the Broncos really threw a terrific defensive wall at them. So that was great. They even ran the footy. Average set distance was higher for the Storm as well, and had more offloads. So it just really showed how great that defense was for the Broncos there. And that's really all I wanted to touch on here, and just shows that they're a clear top two team and a force to be reckoned with. It's very similar to that of the Panthers, obviously. Here the Warriors really put up a fight, but weren't able to really break the Panthers very much at all, unfortunately. And it looks like SJ will be playing, which is great news. Unfortunate, you can only get 21,000 in Bluebet Stadium there, but it's funny, they really talk so much about the Sharks and their stadium there, but 21 is still fairly low compared to compared to the majority of others stadiums there in that one. And guys to really look at for the Panthers, we just had news on Paul Alamotti and also Brad Schneider being signed by the Panthers, and I think that's absolutely cracking decisions there to grab those guys. And if there's Alamotti's going to come in if there's injuries, basically. Taylor May is likely to come back in. Cleary there, 112, so it would be nice to have him as captain on a fantasy side of things. But the big thing here is that Stephen Crichton's been playing really, really well in the last sort of 4 to 8 weeks, and he's someone moving to the Dogs. Is he going to be one of the guys we want to select in our sides? And thankfully that 60 from him isn't included in his average heading into next year and what his score is going to be. You look at Isaiah Yeo, and he's just there and thereabouts every single week there. Liam Martin really stepping up in these type of finals games, and just shows that he's not the clear fantasy option each and every week during the season, but when it comes to Origin, when it comes to finals, he really steps up and dominates there, and very similar to that of Brian To'o there for sure. For the Warriors, there weren't a lot of things to speak about on that front. Completion rates for Warriors was very much down on their normal possession, 57% for the Panthers. So you've seen that all throughout the year. The amount of runs that they take is incredible. Completion rate really, really high, for how much they had the ball as well. you see the post contact meters 481. Like the Warriors did alright on that front, based on how many runs they actually had. But just completely dominated by the Panthers. 3.5 the play the ball speed. So as we saw, the Storm much quicker on that front, but just weren't able to get anything away. So Warriors just were okay, but again, on the offensive side, they weren't able to penetrate that wall. So I think, as I said, Panthers v Broncos is the likely outcome heading into the finals there. But it's wild how this is going to play out, because it's just the clear two top teams at the moment, just defensively, and that's been the biggest thing across the season as well. They obviously have a terrific attacking outfits, but it's their defensive efficiency, 89.5% compared to 84.5. That says it all, and I really hope the Warriors can come out and have a little bit more in attack. Defensively they weren't horrendous in this game. They could have been a lot better. Panthers were great, but we'll get into the preview in the next one for sure. Sharkies and the Roosters. Roosters, very, very formidable. Did everything they could to help them win this game, and they eventually got over the line. Sharkies, unfortunately, just weren't able to ice moments when they needed to, and that was the biggest issue there with the Sharkies. In terms of anything fantasy related there, you're looking at really who are we looking at in the Sharkies for next year. I don't think there's many. It's probably that left edge. What's going to happen with Teague Wilton? Is he going to be there? Who are they going to select there? There's no Wade Graham. So that's something to look at, really, is that position and where that ends up. You're not really going to be looking at guys like Britton Nickera. What's going to happen with McInnes? Is he going to get a big minute role next year? Hazleton, how's things going to play out for him? There's really not too much else other than like a Jack Williams, but he's got his price up very, very high. And then on the Roosters side of things, again, not too much to see there. Obviously, Billy Smith with the fractured jaw. I think if he comes back fit and firing, if the Roosters actually start well, he's going to be a very sneaky option, given he's had a much better sort of finish to the year, and he's played the majority of the year, which is very exciting for him there in that one. And then Wong is someone to really keep an eye on heading into next year. And Terrell May is someone clearly on my radar as well, guys. If you're looking at him, if he happens to get that 50-minute role, he's going to be so good. He just seems very, very dominant across the board there for him. In terms of the stats there in this game, the completion rate was fairly low for both at 73 and 74, and that obviously hurt both teams there. The errors that came about just stopped them from, either one of them, from going on to have big scores, 18, 24, that type of range there. Play the ball speed was very quick. So, I said it gave them both lots of chances. They weren't able to take, unfortunately. There's plenty of runs across the board from both sides. Post-contact meters very, very similar. So you could say from this, with the amount of runs that the Roosters had, they very much won the middle through their post-contact meters and able to get quick play the balls on the back of that. Offloads are very, very low in this game. So, overall, defensively, very, very solid here. You can look at the efficiency. Not great from the Sharkies. They seem to bounce off tackles a little bit more than what the Roosters do. But obviously, it depends how your line is set on that one. And their defense has been much better across the last sort of 6 to 8 weeks. And that showed from there, I think. A lot more missed tackles, but just the way that they can recover, basically, or the lines. People are jumping out of the line to put on hits and stuff like that. You got 15 ineffective tackles compared to the 9 on that one. But just the errors at 15, way too many in the end, and that caused them issues. And unfortunately for them, Gornski's for another year. That they need to get the monkey off the back. They seem to be a bit yippy when it comes to finals time, unfortunately. And the Knights and the Raiders, I am very happy that the Knights got through, but this was a really fun game to watch. Just looking at this matchup here, Knights were meant to win this, you'd imagine, by 20, and every time they really got the ball, they scored in good territory. They were able to score. Apart from Dangagai dropping over the line, he had a very, very tough first half there. I think the Knights are going to come out bigger and better next week and get back to some of the form they showed. They got through this yippee type of game, but they probably played well for 20 minutes of this game and still put on 30 points. So that's scary when it comes to the firepower that they can throw out against the Warriors. And that's where you hope that the Warriors are able to have a much more attacking game coming into this weekend there, which we'll get into that preview very shortly. But a very commendable season for the Raiders. They really didn't shoot their shot all season. They never took that next step into being a really top tier side. They managed to just claw their way into close wins, and a big shout out to them. They could have won this game. A very, very cool finish there with that Tom Starling try very late, and the goal to get them even in that one. If you're looking at guys for next year, obviously, Dylan Lucas didn't play this game, but he's someone he will be playing this one with Fitzgibbon going as well, and he's someone that you want to look at for next year. And if he manages to get that spot, that's who we want to look at from this side. And then the Raiders, there's not a lot, to be honest with you, on their front. You imagine Timoko is going to be very, very consistent again, but you're able to see some big minutes from guys like Adam Mariota and also guys like Trey Mooney, who did really, really well in their time out on the park. So with a few guys out, if that happens to be the case at the start of next year, there's a few of those guys that need to be looked at, that's for sure. Possession was very high for the Raiders, just for the completion rate for the Knights, and shows that if you have that completion rate, don't have all the attack in the world, you can still basically almost get the win there, which is what the Raiders were able to do. Get as close as possible. 42 out of 50 sets is very, very impressive. And then the Knights have to be better than that 70% to get a win next week. Average playable speed super low for both of these teams, so you can tell obviously a very attacking game. Lots of caps and plenty of tackle breaks and the like. They're 31 for the Knights, 49 for the Raiders is very, very high for them. In that one, with that average set distance we saw in the other games was 35 and 37. This one was 39 and 40 and a half there. So a very attacking style game. Defensively wasn't incredible. You can see here, which is funny though, that just have less bouncing off tackles that you can see in this one at 86 and 90. So this just doesn't, a lot of time just doesn't show the it doesn't tell the story of the game a lot of time. In this one, you can see a 90% defensive efficiency for the Raiders, but they put in, Knights put on 30 points very, very comfortably, and every time they got down that end, basically, were able to score. So it just shows their defense on their line not very good, but through general play, they're very, very good in those one-on-one tackles, the two-on-ones, and not bouncing off and not firing out of the line and stuff like that. So very, very good throughout the field, but not good on their line. So that's the interesting one there. Whereas the Knights were kind of okay across the board. They made a lot of tackles. They missed 49. But it was more just the pressure that the Raiders put on that eventually got them over the line. So that's the review, guys, for the first week of the finals. 4 games there. We got 2 to preview. Just be a short one, a few minutes tomorrow to go through that one. Thank you for being here for this. I hope you enjoyed those 4 games. They were very, very great to watch and show just where the teams are at and some of the top teams, some of the lesser teams there. And I hope you enjoy the next couple of games, which we'll have that preview tomorrow. See you guys.